I'm going to go ahead and call us to order, and we'll do roll call and some of this other stuff. Andrea will be joining us shortly. This is the City of Meridian Solid Waste Advisory Commission regular meeting. It is April 25th. It is now 2 minutes after 4. And we'll start with roll call. Identify if you're present. Cheryl Caldwell.
Present.
Mark Nelson.
Present.
Steve Corey, present. Carrie Glenn.
Here.
Dave Neal has mentioned that he would not be able to make it. Megan Larson.
Present.
Andrea Pogue will be joining us. Scott Walters.
Here.
And Victoria Madrigal.
Here.
Ex officio members, Councilwoman Genesis Milan
Here.
and Rochelle Klein. Okay. Quorum being present, we will go ahead and move on with the items on the agenda. First is approval of the agenda, which was sent out about a week ago. Are there any comments on the proposed agenda?
Mr. Chair, I would move approval of the agenda as presented.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that the agenda be approved as written. Further comments? Sensing the commission is ready for a vote, all those in favor of approving the agenda as written signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? The motion passes. Thank you. Next on the agenda is approval of minutes. And I know on the February 28th minutes, I did not get my corrections to Barbara until this morning. Which amongst them is the minutes for our approval of the minutes for the February 1st meeting, special meeting, and the correction of the call to order time from 5:04 to 4:05. Andrea, do you think it's best to just go ahead and postpone that one till next month?
Is this regarding the minutes
This is the first set of minutes for the February 28th one, like I said, that,
that weren't updated?
yes.
Okay. Is that the same for the March 28th meeting?
Well, I have no corrections for the March 28th meeting. Does anyone else?
Mr. Chair, I emailed corrections to Andrea, but they're not incorporated.
Yeah. And I forward them to the clerk's office, both our chair and yours, and ask for them to be updated. So I don't know what happened.
Okay, so I'm going to take that as a recommendation that we should continue those until next month. So, next on the agenda is old business. The first item is the Community Recycling Fund, FY18 SWAC CRFP Catalpa Bench Project update.
Mr. Chair, I have the update for Mike. I don't think he's here. Mike Barton. He said this month he had nothing new to update, but he anticipates having something more to say next month. So I would just continue this topic to the May agenda, and we'll have Mike present.
Thank you. Next is the May 5th Recycle a Bicycle event update. Cheryl Caldwell.
Thank you. We are still working on it. We have 30 applicants and the time period closed, so that's plenty. And we have mostly children, which is what we really hoped for. I've worked with Andrea. We've pulled as many as we could so far. We'll get together on Friday.
With Rochelle?
Rochelle, what did I say?
Me.
Oh, with Andrea. Sorry. Andrea's, I don't know. And I think that's it.
Mr. Chair, I do know, Cheryl, we got another applicant today. Casey Emery from the mayor's office did shoot out a little, hey, we
Yeah,
still
I
have
saw
some.
that, but I was.
So we got one.
But I had told her to close it.
Yeah, there was just email lag time, I
Okay.
think, what was
But
going on.
has she closed it?
I don't know. So, but I know we got one today that I think we should honor because of the confusion.
Okay.
But that's up
Well,
to
the
you
website
guys.
says closed. So,
I think we can move forward. So Cheryl, do you need assistance from any commissioners at this point?
We do. Megan has said she'd help, and Scott and Mark. And we need those for to transport the bikes. I need to talk to Rochelle, because I think some of them are actually stored in Caldwell at a facility there. So we're going to get together Friday and see where we are. So that's it. Otherwise, we're ready.
And if you need transportation, I can offer a vehicle and a
Truck or
trailer
something.
possibly.
That might help, yeah. I may need to do that.
Cheryl, last year, I believe Republic Services did the
They
transport.
did, and it hasn't, I don't know if we have that this year.
Conrad, can you speak to this? I don't know. Is Rochelle running late?
She is just,
I expect her to come through those doors any minute.
I think she's been out of town, right?
No.
Oh, just at meetings, okay.
Right. I can't confirm transportation of those. I don't see why that would be a problem. We did take shipments over to Caldwell using our cart delivery truck. I assume we'd use the same logistics in this case.
Oh, okay, that'd be good. Whatever we can get as many bikes in as possible,
Yeah, I don't think that'll be.
around 9. 9 a.m., yeah. Okay, well, that's why I said I'll get with Rochelle. And see
Yeah,
what we
I
can.
do expect her to come through any minute.
Thank you, Conrad.
Otherwise, Cheryl, who else do you need on the 5th at Kleiner from 10 to 2?
Really, we don't need any more
Oh,
than that, I wouldn't say. We just kind of check them out. They've already signed the release forms and things online, right?
yes.
At least I told them to. And so it'll just basically be letting them pick them out or pass them out. And we didn't have any trouble doing that last year, so there was like 4 or 5 of us and Rochelle, so.
Is there a repair person there?
There was that time. I think this time we'll have Slime with us to fix flat tires if they have a flat tire problem. Otherwise, I think that's it this time. We're certainly not going to pay him this year, so.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I'm pretty sure that in the last meeting, Rochelle made a comment like she's gotten really good at doing the slime.
Yes.
So, and I did just message her, and she had to go back for a new flash drive, but she said she does have transportation for the bicycles on the 5th.
Okay, great. I didn't know if we hadn't talked about that at depth yet. So.
I didn't get details, just that
So
she's
who
probably
is, just
gonna drive.
details.
And
The
that-
bikes are there.
So,
And then if we don't have a repair person to help us, then we probably need to arrange to have tools, which we can talk about next week.
Okay.
Because we used all of his tools before.
What did we use?
Um,
Tighten the seats or something, or lift them up, up and down, right? Okay.
I recall we swapped out a couple seats.
Oh, we did. I don't remember that.
I can bring a kit.
yeah.
Okay, that would be
We'll just make
good.
sure we cover that.
Because we have 2 gentlemen that volunteer at the transfer station to do repairs. They even have a little storage facility there where they keep bike seats and brakes and stuff. So they've been working on them. And Rochelle said we have enough ready, so.
maybe we could ask them if they wouldn't mind donating.
Well,
one more
at least
time.
one of them.
At least
Yeah.
one, yeah.
I was gonna see about that too. Let me write that down. So that's it.
We'll move on to the Dow Chemical Orange Bag Program update. Andrea?
Yes, so this week, Catherine Trituti from Boise said that the memorandum of understanding is still in their legal department being reviewed. That is the memorandum of understanding that will be distributed to Meridian, Eagle, and Garden City, the 3 cities that have, that intend to piggyback on Boise's program. Based on the fact that that MOU is going to contain all the program details that we have to comply with, it's hard for staff to make much forward movement at this point. However, we have a team that met yesterday. So that is Carrie, David Miles from Public Works, Mike Tanner from IT, and Casey Emery from the mayor's office, that began the process of pre-planning. And the thought will be that kind of the roughest timeline we were thinking might work is that at some point, hopefully earlier in May, the MOU will come in. That'll be for the mayor's signature. Unless legal vets it and has some problem with it, it can be on consent agenda. So the most important thing about that MOU is that we'll get the details that we can start building our program around. We would proceed to do that program building through the month of May, bring it back here to SWAC to review and hopefully recommend to City Council. They've already recommended funding, but it would be, here's the program, here's how we intend to roll it out. So we're just hoping to get City Council to say what they usually do with our programs, like Trash or Treasure or Recycle a Bicycle, that, hey, this looks good, yeah, we're behind it. June would be the month of advertising when the portal will be open. It'll be a process similar to Recycle a Bicycle that has worked so well. So the idea is that in the June 5th and June 20th billing statement, we will have created a small orange insert that will give this pertinent information about when the window will be open. We're thinking at this point, not having any more information to work on, that it would be for a window to be opened in July following the 4th of July weekend, and keep it open for the same number of weeks like we did for Recycle a Bicycle, or until such time as 1,500 households sign up. We'll figure that out. And then the distribution of those households that are the 1,500 households would be contacted with distribution instructions, which the idea is that they'll come into City Hall to pick those bags up. We'll have a start date, like when we would like them to have their bags picked up and to start participating. So the timeline, the roughest timeline staff could figure out is that. In addition to billing statements for marketing, it will go out on the city website, Nextdoor, social media, Facebook, so that everybody should be given the same opportunity to sign up, and because we don't want there to be any unfair advantage, claims of that. On the portal, like we developed questions for Recycle a Bicycle, we're anticipating needing to ask for name, address, MUBS account number, because we want them to be city residents, email address, phone number, so we can get in touch with them, the 1,500 households, to give them further instructions. We want to know that they participate in recycling, because they will need a recycling container to put the orange bags in. We want to know that they agree to comply with all the program requirements, because we understand Dow is going to want to do periodic audits, and we're not quite sure what that involves. Maybe the MOU will spell that out. Maybe we'll learn about that as the year unfolds. But we need to have people being willing to participate. So on the other piece of this is May 9th. There's a town hall meeting, and on that agenda will be the Orange Bag program to share what we know, and I'll either present this, or maybe we'll have gotten the MOU by then and I'll have more information. If we can move up the timeline, that's possible, depending on what we hear from Boise. And it's also possible the timeline will get pushed back. So that's all I have to offer on that topic.
Thank you. Commissioners, any questions on the Orange Bag program? Thank you for the update. That completes our Community Recycling Fund activities. We'll move on to residential recycling program. First item under that is May 5th Trash or Treasure event. An update by Brett Marenko.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. Thank you for allowing me to come and just update you real quickly on what's been happening with Trash or Treasure for 2018. If you recall, we do have 5 participating HOAs: Bernie Glen, Havasu Creek, Hunters Point, Bear Creek, and Shepherd's Creek that are going to be participating. It's going to be May 6th or May 5th through May 6th. And around April 4th, we did have a pre-flyer that was kind of a save-to-date mini picture that we sent along with the link to a video that we created on the city's YouTube page. It is private, so the only way to get to that video would be through that link. So far, with the link, it's been attached to the pre-flyer on April 4th, as well as a flyer last Wednesday, and will be attached to the 2 upcoming flyers that we're going to be sending out, and that's a full page flyer that will be sent out tomorrow, as well as the May 2nd, which will be a Wednesday. And the video so far, I do believe the video that we had last year was about 80 views or so, and we have, just checking on it, was 127. So we're getting some good view counts, and we do have some vertical flyers, or the vertical banners that we used last year. We'll be doing that as well and getting that up on, I do believe, Wednesday as well, the 2nd of May. And then again, the event will be May 5th, May 6th. Spring cleanup will follow after, 7th through 11th. And on the 7th, that will be a Monday, I will be sending out a Survey Monkey to the HOAs so that we can get a response to that. And we did update that to include a critical question of which HOA do you belong to. So that will be great information to get. Other than that, we're hoping for a good turnout like we did last year.
Members of the commission, any questions?
Mr. Chair, Brett, so you would just encourage our commissioners to get out and take pictures, participate, drive some of the neighborhoods, see what kind of...
If they're willing, that would be greatly appreciated during the 5th and 6th to see what's being put out, what's being taken, and documentation would be excellent if anyone would be willing to do that.
Well, yes, Megan.
To that end, Brett, could I ask you to repeat the subdivisions one more time?
Absolutely. So it's going to be a southern portion of Meridian and then a northern portion of Meridian. The northern portion is Bernie Glen and Havasu Creek, which we had last year. And just right by them is Hunters Point. And then the southern portion, that's going to be beyond the overpass, will be Bears Creek and Shepherd's Creek.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, Brett, I can help you, or I can do the banners if I get coordinates. Like last year, I was happy to do them, but I don't know the right, I mean, lots of entrances and exits between them and on the major streets exist if you
I was going to get with you with that
Okay,
and say,
let's get together
where are we going to
later.
put these?
That's a good question. So, yeah, maybe we can connect and we can figure out where you think they might be most visible, or, and maybe we'll change some to, instead of blade banners, just regular horizontal banners. They might be, easier to read, so I don't know.
Yeah, yes, we can do
Okay.
anything that you think is best. I'll send out the email to you. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Brett, what was the target date to put up the banners?
I do believe that was Wednesday the 2nd is what we decided on.
Next week? It's coming right
Next
up.
week.
Yeah. Okay.
Brett, first off, I am remiss, and congratulations on your new arrival.
Thank you very much.
And you've done a stellar job, especially considering the fact that you're with your daughter,
Yes, second daughter.
second daughter. we've definitely appreciated the input you've done on all this, and and then, of course, Rochelle, I believe you're going to be totally swamped with the bicycle project next Saturday.
Gonna be swamps.
Yes, so it's good we're getting the banners out on the 2nd.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely, anything you need from Rochelle, you want to get together with her sooner rather than later because of how intense May 5th is going to be for.
It's a big day.
Would you like me to wait till after the meeting? and
No,
we can
no,
just
no,
talk?
I can just email you.
Okay, will do.
Any further comments? Excellent. Thank you, Brett, and good luck.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, commissioners, again, very much.
Okay, the second item under the residential recycling program is the recycling options, a staff update. Andrea?
So I've handed out a packet of information. On April 4th, staff, as directed by SWAC at their May 28th meeting, prepared summary of your questions and sent them to Republic Services. We haven't received anything back as of today's date. The next thing is we sent a request to have Republic Services reach out to Western Recycling to ask for some operation cost-related information. So that's the next one. We haven't got anything back on that. The following requests that SWAC made to staff was that we would ask Republic Services to prepare a pro forma for a glass recycling subscription program. Staff did that on March 20th. It's been a busy time in the world of recycling, so just when things haven't gotten done yet, they haven't gotten done. And then on March 20th, I also, per your request, forwarded a request for Republic Services to work up a compost pro forma. So I think staff has discharged the duties that you had requested as on March 28th or earlier. And that's my update.
Rochelle?
Sure. Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I'll come up to that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. So we got the request of for the performers for glass and compost, and both of those take, we had said earlier, at least 30 to 60 days before those are turned around. So those take are a lot of significant area and regional accounting input. So those are coming. And with the as far as the questions, so we've answered all of those here today. And we had a meeting with Western Recycling as late as Tuesday of this week. And, I think it was Tuesday, Monday of this week, we had a meeting with them, and we were waiting on some information from them. So I have that now, and I will walk. Did you, each of you have a copy of questions? If not, I'll read them out loud. You guys have copies of them? Yeah. So the first question that, and this may take a few minutes, this is kind of long. The first question was, please provide a contractual basis for Republic Services' request to shift processing costs from Meridian's residential recycling program, including net costs from Republic Services to Meridian households. So I'll just read this aloud because it's easier to do that. So just, I guess, to make sure we start high level before we drill down, recyclables have always been housed under the EPA federal definition of solid waste, and that's under the Code of Federal Regulations 261.2. And so when recycling prices are negative and someone has to actually pay to get rid of the solid waste that is collected, then it is then considered a disposal cost. This Meridian city contract allows the contractor, sorry, I have new glasses on, it allows the contractor to recover disposal costs. Additionally, through the recycling, though the recycling stream is contractually obligated to be delivered to Western Recycling, Republic Services is obligated to return 80% of any revenue to the City of Meridian Community Recycling Fund. All residential recycling, though, is owned by Republic Services once it's collected at the curb. This allows Republic Services the flexibility to landfill recycling tons when commodity prices are negative and disposal is a more affordable option. That being said, that has never been a choice that Republic Services has chosen to do. So when the franchise agreement between Sanitary Services and the City of Meridian was signed in September of 2000, the City of Meridian agreed to a fee of $2.10 per household per month for recycling service, which then consisted of 18-gallon green bins with weekly collection service. The contract was structured so that revenue generated from the sale of the residential recycling would come back to Sanitary Services, who would pay for once-a-month household hazardous waste collection at the Meridian Transfer Station before returning remaining proceeds to the City Community Recycling Fund. For 9 years, this system operated as the contract intended. Between 2000 and 2009, the City of Meridian grew, and the frequency of household hazardous waste collection increased accordingly, eventually resting at weekly, year-round service. Recycling revenues increased as the city grew. There was always plenty of money returned to Sanitary Services to pay for the increased household hazardous waste costs and return some money each month to the Community Recycling Fund. The first change in this working arrangement came in 2010. In 2010, the Meridian City Council voted to automate residential solid waste collection services. All trash and recycling was to be contained in carts. Recycling moved from 18-gallon green bins with source-separated materials to commingled recycling in one cart. Residents were empowered to choose between 35, 65, and 95-gallon trash and recycling carts. The size of the trash cart determined their monthly cost of service. Trash and recycling costs for the first time blended into a single customer rate. Residential recycling volumes doubled, but the recycling commodity value dropped. This was due to the extra processing fee that was charged to separate recyclables back out into their respective commodities before baling and shipping to various markets for reuse. Contamination in the recycling stream rose steadily with cart collection from 4 to 5% in early 2010 to 12 to 13%, which we experience today. The additional trash in the recycling stream drove up disposal costs at the MRF and reduced recycling revenues coming back to Sanitary Services and the City of Meridian. Several factors contribute to the higher contamination levels, including residents that were familiar with commingled recycling in other parts of the country assume protocol is the same in Idaho and throw items such as glass and cartons into the cart. Existing customers, if uncertain about the list of acceptable materials, tend to throw items into the recycling cart instead of into the trash. We call this wishful recycling. And drivers also have had a difficult time identifying contamination at the curb, which makes customer education more difficult. Historically, drivers hand through the recyclables and could easily leave behind educational contamination notices for customers. With recyclables concealed in the cart, the driver cannot identify unacceptable materials unless he or she sees them on the screen in the cab as they are being emptied into the truck. By that time, the driver can leave a notice, but it is too late to reject unacceptable items because they are already in the truck. And then commingled recycling was approved to make recycling and trash collection easier for the resident and definitely safer for employees. Outreach materials did not stress the importance and expense of keeping trash out of the carts. By early 2011, shortly after all Meridian customers had received their new carts and were adjusting to the new protocol, there were several months when recycling revenues paid to Sanitary Services from Western Recycling did not cover monthly household hazardous waste costs. Sanitary Services subsidized the incremental difference to maintain the weekly HHW program. Recycling markets moved erratically up and down throughout the year, yielding a net positive and net negative revenue months. In fall of 2011, Sanitary Services owner Steve Sedlacek came before the Meridian City Council and explained that the historic agreed-upon methodology of paying monthly HHW fees out of recycling revenues and then returning any remaining money to the Community Recycling Fund was not a sustainable formula. The mayor and council recognized that the situation involved negative recycling markets and was not considered that net negative recycling markets were not considered part of the franchise agreement and noted it was not the city's intent for the contractor to subsidize city solid waste services. The council directed Sanitary Services starting in fiscal year 2012 to pay monthly household hazardous waste fees out of residential recycling revenues and keep 20% of the remaining recycling revenue during net positive months to help offset losses sustained during negative months, and then return the other 80% to the Community Recycling Fund. This recycling revenue methodology was in place at the time when Republic Services merged with Sanitary Services in April of 2012. Although well-intended, the 80-20 formula was successful for a short period of time. Recycling markets continued to erode during the fiscal year 2013, and by fiscal year 2014, there was no recycling revenue throughout the entire year. Republic Services covered HHW program costs, which exceeded $72,000 a year, and subsidized recycling at the same time. And then you can see what the recycling subsidies were for those through 3 years, through 2015 and into 2016. By the summer of 2015, with no net positive recycling revenue for more than 2 years, Republic Services asked the city to remove HHW costs from the recycling revenue formula and instead have residents pay HHW program costs. With council's approval, HHW program costs shifted to the customer in fiscal year 2016. The impact was 24 cents per household per month and was to be revisited annually. So note, in fiscal year 2017, the monthly impact dropped to 21 cents per household per month because there were several Monday holidays and the site was closed. So the incremental difference between what Republic Services had was reimbursed and what was paid to Stericycle for services was rebated back to the Community Recycling Fund. From the start of fiscal year 2016 through current year, fiscal year 2018, there have only been 4 months, they were all in 2017, when the average recycling revenue per ton was net positive. The value of recycling in the Treasure Valley during fiscal year 2017 all in was $2.31 per ton. The chart below illustrates the net cost of recycling in the Treasure Valley, and this is both Ada and Canyon counties. And so this actually shows you in 2014, the cost of recycling was $15.64 per ton, and then it dropped in 15 to 19, almost $20. In 2016, it bounced up a little bit, and then we broke the zero barrier to $2.31 during part of 2017, and where we are today is $58.89 per ton that we're paying to have material recycled. And then with the last line during this fiscal year, the next chart actually shows where we are for fiscal year 2018, and we're right in the middle of that right now. So, and thank you, Jason. You're so nice. So anyway, between October of 2017 and March of 2018, you can see prices have continued to erode. And at this time, Republic Services is asking the city to again consider modifying the formula addressing residential recycling revenue so that Republic Services is taken out of the formula. Republic Services would not share 20% of residential recycling revenue, but instead the Community Recycling Fund would get 100% of all recycling revenues. Republic Services would not continue to subsidize city residential recycling, but would cover monthly costs, continue the recycling program by paying Western's monthly bills to accept, separate, bale, and ship the Meridian's residential recyclables. Customer rates could adjust accordingly to a recycling recovery fee or could adjust based on the last 6 months. So the pricing that we have before you today with the different options, that's based on the last just 6 months of data that we have. So earlier this week we were talking with Western Recycling on a conference call, and they happened to think that maybe some of the fiber markets had gotten a toehold and were improving, but it sounded, we had another meeting earlier today, and it sounded as though that may not be the case. So again, like $1.25, if that could change. You know, the question was, how can we guarantee it? And the answer is we absolutely could not. You know, we just we would get paid for the cost of providing the service, and then any upside the city would get or downside the city would get, or we could build in a buffer, and I'll walk through what that looks like if for Republic to keep the upside, if you want to continue that kind of split. So anyway,
Rochelle?
Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt. The answers that you're providing, are these the answers to the 20 questions that was emailed?
So
Okay.
these are all,
I guess
yes.
when did they get done? Because the request wasn't to bring the answers to SWAC, it was to bring it back to staff so that staff could make a legitimate recommendation
Right.
to SWAC.
So
This is the first anybody's ever heard of it.
yes, thank you, Commissioner. And we have been working with Western Recycling to get some information. We had joined in Boise and sending just a letter to Western Recycling asking them for some of the answers in this questionnaire, which were what about line items to show technology upgrades? What would the impact be to the processing costs, and how would that affect our revenue back? And I called in for the meeting Monday. That's when I guess it was presented. I did not get a hard copy, and I don't know if Commissioner Poe got a hard copy at that meeting.
No.
So we had, we still don't have pieces of this. We're waiting on some data for this. So we understand that that was delivered at that meeting. We did not see it. I didn't get a copy after the meeting. We'd asked for it. And we also did join Boise City in writing a letter to Western Recycling asking for certain changes to be made or some explanations to be made. And that letter was sent out several weeks ago. And out of that, Western asked to set up a meeting and respond in person. And that was the meeting that happened Monday afternoon. So this is the first, this is as complete as I can get it. And so I was at a leadership conference and filled out those pieces Monday afternoon. So, and I did call Commissioner Pogue yesterday and say, or Monday afternoon after that meeting, and I said I would be back in town and to finish this up yesterday and get these over here today. So, I mean,
I'm just thinking that's a lot of information to
Right.
where we're trying to take notes on verbal. We haven't even seen, I mean, I guarantee I'm not going to comprehend anything you're saying right now after about the first 5 minutes. So
yeah, well, and the expectation isn't that you would. I can still, I'm hoping to add more data actually to this. I still haven't seen some pieces of it, but what you have now is what Republic can give you at this time, and that was.
And as of right now, we don't have anything. You have it. That's what I'm saying.
Right. Oh, and I'll send you an electronic copy of this. I mean, you could have read along with me if you wanted, but it's sort of like. It's not, I mean, there's some charts in here, and you'll get an electronic copy of this. But certainly if you have questions during this, I want you to, I want to walk you through it instead of you just reading it in isolation so I can answer questions. And then if you, I mean, some of it is fast and some of it's kind of slow. But some of it, a lot of this content is actually incorporated in the quarterly reports. So it's a synthesis of quarterly report data. Okay. So hopefully some of it's new, not new to you too. So.
Mr. Chair, if I could just interrupt just on one thing you touched on.
Yes, Andrea.
At the Ada SWAC meeting today, Mr. Dean did indicate he was able to give his response to Mayor Beater's office yesterday, and he wasn't aware Meridian was interested in the information. So we are, and we need to receive it. If it's out there, you apparently didn't know that either. So. No. Yeah, he has come up with their information, and so it's available. It just has to get disseminated.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. And we have said that all of our cities are interested in that information. So all of us are in that wanting to know those same numbers. So they actually gave, was it a technology update? Is that what they said? That
no, the operation information. So.
And that was yesterday?
Today's meeting.
Oh, no, but I mean, it was delivered to Boise yesterday, so it's available?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I will get that.
That's what he said.
Okay, I will get that also. So, and some of this is old news, just that this is not isolated just to this market. This is, it's definitely more West Coast. I'll just kind of summarize some of this. We on the West Coast are suffering from China's national sword. It is not really something experienced in the central U.S. or on the East Coast. They have different markets. They've never had the luxury of having China as a buyer. So this is really just affecting Rocky Mountain West and West Coast. So East Coast is somewhat exempt from this from our pains, but they went through this years ago, which is why they have strong markets without China. So anyway, so just kind of walking through the MRF costs have gone up over the years, and the goal for us and the exercise of figuring out solutions here is to use these materials domestically, to find a place where they can be separated into a high-quality stream, to separate streams, and then baled and sold domestically. So we know the number of tons. We've asked Western Recycling, we know the number of tons. We've asked them to outline the different technological upgrades available, what the cost would be, and then run our formula through that. So we know that what comprises each ton of our recycling, and if they just apply that new technology, like let's say they get an optical sorter for paper, they can say, okay, we know that 20% of what you bring in is newspaper, and now we can pull that specifically out, and it has this market value. So they can take our urban mix here in the Valley and apply it to the different technological advances that they're considering at this point. So, Anyway, as long as Republic Services does not own a local MRF, but we are committed to finding domestic solutions even outside of our current contractor. So we recently met with a plastic post manufacturer, and Mike Magurdio was there too, to see if we can take our plastics somewhere locally and have them made into fence posts, or like for the ITD highway posts and things like that. We might be able to make those out of recycled plastic. They're doing that in Iowa, and it's working really well. We also met with a company that makes wallboard and ceiling tiles out of recovered paper, and also spray and insulation out of recovered paper, and hydro seeding companies. And we're meeting with people here saying, what kind of mix do you need to in this area? So rather than sending all of our paper to China, can we make some advances here and pull out just what they need out of our stream, and then reuse that paper or whatever plastic locally? So we have been working on that for probably the last 90 days, pretty closely with the city of Boise. Paper molding companies too that make egg crates or fruit crates inside boxes, things that we never really thought about until now. So we're hoping to come back with some solutions pretty quickly in the future. And then as you work down, on number 2, the question was, what are the options? We brought these options, Dave Fisher and I think we've brought them forward several times, $1.25, 90 cents, or savings of $1. This is a mix of just what we take in the door at Western right now. Everybody's doing the same thing. Everybody's got the same charges. Everyone's paying the same fees. That could change depending on what cities choose to do. So currently, this is a per household per month fee that we're paying to have recycling processed. So processing is separating the materials on the line, and that's $1.06. Freight to move the separated materials to market. Trash, and then once you take those together, Western Recycling sells that commodity, and there is some positive revenue from that. And so the difference is down below of the total commodity value currently within the last 6 months has been negative 77 cents. So that's where we sit currently. And the anticipated value is that piece came with when we started recycling programs in other cities. The cost of service, let's say, was $3.50. So we had looked at a 5-year trend and said, what does each household roughly generate in revenue per month? And the answer at that time when we launched was 50 cents per household per month. So when we asked cities, what do you want to do? Would you rather pay the $3.50 a month and then you get the commodity value, or would you rather us charge you the $3 per household per month and then we take the commodity value and just offset the cost of service? So across the valley, there were some different options, but by and large, everybody chose to take the commodity value and apply it toward the cost of service to reduce the monthly cost of service. Boise City agreed on sharing the upside and sharing the downside, which was nice. Ada County said keep 100% of the upside, keep 100% of the downside, and landfill it if we have the ability to landfill there if it gets net negative. We've not done that, but that's our option at Ada County. It's a little bit different than other options. In Meridian, we started with 100% of the revenue, went back to the city once the household hazardous waste fees were paid. And then when the market shifted and Steve Sedlicek came back and said this isn't working, the city then said, okay, you keep part of the upside to negate the downside. And so that worked a little while. So that's hard to say I'd have to go back and look and see what his estimated 20% of his upside per month was per household. This is what it was for other households, when we're in this market. But so anyway, that's this formula that you have in front of you for option 1. And again, this could, our ideal scenario is that we would take the number of tons in Meridian and give the city what the processing cost is per ton, and then you guys can divide it by households and show a recycling recovery fee per month. And then that way, we're exempt from the downside. The example I gave earlier today is, if you're a wastewater treatment facility and you're running at a deficit, you can't run for 4 years at a deficit. You have to either go to your residents and ask for more money, you have to bond it out, you have to figure out a solution to pay for the downside. That's where we are now. So when I show you these numbers and they're negative, big negative numbers, they have real consequences. I mean, these are equipment investments we can't make. These are raises we can't pay people. These are community investments we're not making because this is our fixed budget, and so we have to cover these costs somewhere. So viewing us as a utility, we were gamblers and thought the market would turn around, and the market has not turned around. And so we are open to solutions on if one of these three options doesn't resonate and you have a better idea, we're open to that. But we are a for-profit business that can't sustain losses like this for years 5, 6, and 7, and we just can't do it. And so if we wind up, having to dispose of it, then that's something that we'll have to do down the line to cover the costs. And then there's still a cost associated with disposal, but there's no revenue in this, and there's no sign that revenue is coming, I guess is the reason why we're in front of you guys. So anyway, just walking through, skipping through some of these graphs, and you'll have a copy of this presentation, but looking down on option 2, where we got like the 90 cents, and that's when you pull mixed paper out. If you look at the graph under option 2, you'll see this is just the March 2018 graph that we get from Western. So this is a snapshot that we get every month of what our mix is and what our costs are. And you can see if you look at the mixed waste paper and you drop down to the bottom, the net per ton due to Western per ton of mixed waste paper was $68.34. So the idea is if we could pull that big negative out of the recycling cart, that would really help. We're not going to ever get it out. We have been telling cities you could still recycle cardboard and dry food boxes, and that would be allowable in the cart. And then we heard today that cardboard might go away. But this is what we're sticking with for at least the next year on the commodity side. But we were at a meeting earlier with Western Recycling, and they said that even cardboard, which surprised me, doesn't have market value and could be a negative, which surprised me. But anyway, in option 3, when Dave Fisher was here, we talked about parking recycling carts and not using them for the service, and it would be a savings of $1 a month. And the question was, why isn't it just like, why wouldn't it just be 0 or more than that? I mean, why would we not see more of a savings than $1? And the reason for that is all of the material doesn't go away, right? So it still has to go into carts, and we still have to, all of our trash routes are optimized, meaning they don't have any extra capacity to take extra material on. They fill up and they go to the landfill, and then they fill up again, and then they go to the landfill. And that's the way you run an efficient garbage business. You don't have a lot of extra capacity on any one of your trucks. So we know by household, by season, roughly how many pounds of waste are going to be put out every month, and we route to that. So when we say, oh, we're going to have an additional 1,200 tons per month, we can't just add that on trash trucks. We would have to use the recycling carts for trash and then run those routes. We would have some route savings, but if you think of it in this context, we'd be able to park one truck and the others would have to run. We'd have additional disposal, but we would see an immediate reduction of like $32,426 a month, which was our current household count as of last month. So, and that's a big deal. I mean, that's a lot for us. We would have to pay disposal, and then we would lose that $32,000, and the route savings wouldn't make up for the parking one route wouldn't cover those costs. And the state tax commission would still collect rent on the rent on the recycling carts, even if they're just being used for trash. So that's another cost that we would have to pay. And then question 3, I mean, this is just a summary. It looks kind of complicated, but it says Republic Services notes a negative financial impact to their operation. What financial cost is Republic experiencing each month for recycling? So I just went back from fiscal year 2014 forward and pulled the quarterly reports. And we give annual reports too, but sometimes we don't pull all that data together. So this was actually a great opportunity for you to see quarterly what our payout was, what the impact was per quarter and per month, per household. So that's just a snapshot. And I just walked through, and you can look at some of these. Some of these are a little bit, the answers seem probably redundant, but which is fine. But one of the questions, what are the changes in pricing? We've walked through that. It's national sort affects us significantly. We have the material that we're collecting is significantly slowed down ports. So the material that we're collecting is baled and then it's shipped to market. Well, I'll tell you what, everybody, when China closed down, pivoted to Vietnam, Malaysia, Indonesia. Those ships are waiting forever to unload those bales of recycling. Once they're there, those mills can't use them very quickly, so everything has gotten slow everywhere around the world for us. And so the prices will remain low as long as the slowdown is in effect. And in addition to the other thing affecting costs on this side is MRFs have had to compete. They've had to add capital, human capital to separate, and they've had to add technology. So, and the other thing affecting us is our MRF processing costs have gone up over the years. So for example, just starting at September 2015 to March of 2018, you can see in section 4 down toward the middle of the page, our processing costs per ton have changed from $70 a ton in 2015 to $87.63 a ton in March of 2018. So in addition to the loss of revenue, our processing costs per ton have gone up. So anyway, and then another question, which is number 5, is how can we, so let's say like we have one city that chose to just go with option 2. They said, we only want to go with option 2. If paper doesn't have value, we want to pull it out. And the question was, okay, all this stuff gets mixed on the floor at Western. How do you know, why should they pay less when it just gets mixed in with everything else? And, how are we going to verify that? How will we know what's in that truck and how they should be paying less? So the answer to that is we have MRFs all around the country. On the West Coast, they're including Fort Worth. They're Fort Worth and they're Anaheim, they're San Jose, they're Seattle, they're Las Vegas. So we have MRFs around the country, and most cities choose to do, I shouldn't say most, many cities choose to do different things. So neighboring cities can make different programmatic choices, and that's okay. And those trucks come into the recycling center, and they dump their recyclables on the floor, and they still get mixed together, and they still go across the line. And we identify what's on those trucks by doing audits, so recycling characterization audits. And the frequency of that depends on where you are. Like if it's an established program, you might only do it once or twice a year. If it's a new program like Middleton, we'll probably do that quarterly for the first year until everybody's on board and educated so we know how much paper is getting pulled out. But it is not a problem to say, they're pulling out 50%, 50% of what we put in our cart is mixed paper. We're hoping out of the chute to see half of that get pulled out of Middleton's cart. So to be a 25% reduction in what they're putting in their carts. So, and it would mean that they would not have to pay this negative $68.34 a ton for mixed paper. I mean, we're hoping to see their portion of the paper drop. So their cost should drop accordingly. So, so that's pretty simple for us. So we want to make sure cities knew that you're not obligated to do something. I mean, it makes it easier for education, but it's what Eagle doesn't obligate you guys in any way to do the same thing.
Mr. Chair. Sorry, Michelle.
Councilwoman.
So looking at these numbers, the processing has gone up 25% in 2.5 years. Do you have any idea why? That's a huge jump, 25%. We're not talking about a little bit. And when we raise prices, or when you do, we have to get approval over a tiny little amount. 25% in 2.5 years is outrageous.
So, Mr. Chairman and Councilwoman Milam, so a couple things. We always ask for verification of those numbers. When National Sword came in, so we saw a couple jumps for early on, and that was additional labor, and that really, I guess more recently it's been due to National Sword. That is what, they've had to slow their line down and increase their, the number of people working on the line. So they said that's what drove the costs. Really, I guess, that's an explanation that's hard for me to say. It's not our book of business.
Right.
So one of the things that we, we do ask regularly. We push back on those numbers, but at the end of the day, they're our choice in the valley, and that's the going price. It's not outrageous compared to other MRFs, I guess, is what I would. On the next page, we kind of cover that. Just, I guess for now, I can say, like I've covered how Middleton could do something different than you guys. I'll get to that. We'll kind of come back to that, but. Question 6 was, how would these prices impact the Meridian Community Recycling Fund? And the answer is there's no money for the fund, right? So there's $0 to split anyway. So the fund is kind of starving right now. So the idea is if, let's say you take option one and it's $1.25 per household per month, and it comes back in a year that the actual impact to every household was 90 cents, then that incremental difference would come back, just like household hazardous waste fees. That would be something that would come back, and then we can adjust moving forward. So, but that's really the only revenue other than hand in hand, which has been struggling too because the paper market just isn't there. So we get mostly cardboard on that, and there's not much value there. But so the impacted community recycling fund, it's like, I don't know when it'll see its next infusion of money, but it's not. There's no money to share actually right now. And then I actually called Steve Sedlacek on number 7. The $3.36 a household, he wasn't familiar with that either. So we didn't see that when we bought the company and any of the sale documents, and he was uncertain where that came from. So I can't really speak to that because he said the rates were embedded into one rate, global rate, when the city chose to automate. So anyway, so just kind of moving down to highlight some of the other questions. Had we sent like a request to Western Recycling? The answer is not a direct request. We worked with Boise City on a letter to them, which we thought was more of a regional request. So it's interesting that it's just gone to the Boise mayor. So I'll get a copy of that. So it really embodied everybody's interests. So the whole region shares this facility, and we all had I assume we all have the same interests. We'd like more money for our higher quality product, and more return for our money, and, more affordable processing costs. Let's see, it's walking through how we updated our contract with Western. We had to update it when we went from, and we weren't involved in this, but we did, when we purchased sanitary services, we got these documents. When the city went from green bins to green carts, the contract had to be updated to accommodate processing, because for the first time that term processing came into play. So before that, we were a bail and ship operation. So everything went in, and there was a cost for bailing and shipping, and that on the backside between 2010 and 2000, when people started getting their carts in 2014, when the MRF doors opened, they included that processing cost. I called Dave Dean on that and said, we didn't see it for the first time as a line item until 2014 when they opened their own MRF, but it was covered in the cost of bailing and shipping earlier than that after we started mixing them together. So, and as far as how are we going to verify Meridian's current recycling stream with 3 through 7s removed against contamination, we had always said by April 1st, everybody's doing the same thing. 3 through 7 plastics are not allowed anywhere in the valley at this point unless you have a hefty energy bag. So that we should not be seeing those in the cart. That's considered a contaminant. Hopefully they're coming out of everybody's. Boise has hit it really hard. They were slow initially to tell customers to keep them out, those materials out of the cart. Now they have really reached out and said keep 3 through 7s out. So everybody's on the same page. Hopefully everybody's doing the same thing, but we are going to verify that because different cities have different trash components. So, another question is, should Meridian choose to halt its recycling program, would Republic honor the pilot hefty energy bag program for participating households? And there's really no way for us to do that. So without a cart, we can't throw it through the top of the truck, right? So there's no way for us to collect those bags. So everything would be going to the landfill, and then there wouldn't be a special orange hefty energy bag route. So the answer to that would actually be no.
Rochelle, on that
Yes.
note, could there be a container at the transfer station designated for orange bag collection?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Pogue, I'd have to check into that because anything that's open to the public is really at high risk of contamination. And this is such a closely guarded, monitored program. We would have to actually ask Boise City if they'd be okay, and Dow and Reynolds. That's not our program. So we are definitely incredibly supportive on the collection side, but I would not have the latitude to say yes to that just because they really are monitoring this very closely so it succeeds. And I can tell you from other drop sites, if you guys have been by, we'll empty our cardboard drop site 3 times a weekend, and we get tires and all kinds paint cans. We get all kinds of stuff. So my concern would be if we had an open, just drop at will container, it might be really subject to contamination. But that I would actually leave that call up to Boise City and Dow. But that's a good question.
excuse me, Mr. Chair.
Megan.
I apologize, Rochelle. As I mentioned, I do have to step out. At some point, will we receive this document?
You can have
written,
today, yeah.
or that'll be shared with the
Yeah.
commissioners, so, okay. That'd be,
Yeah,
I'd like
thanks,
to read
Meg.
it.
Thanks. Okay. Yeah, and
Thank you.
anyway, we just, another question was, once we collect the materials, are there guarantees that, that these materials are being recycled? And the answer is yes. We've asked Western for verification, downstream verification. So not just Western saying, yes, these materials are all being recycled, but actually from the people that are buying the materials. The risk is, as you get more and more expensive recycling, that it's easy for them to charge, let's say, $86.73 a ton, and then turn around and send it someplace to be landfilled for $14.50, like Canyon County. That's a concern of ours, and we want to make sure that if people are going through the effort to recycle and we're covering these costs to actually have the material recycled, that they're actually making it to end markets. And so we have been getting those verifications from the people buying materials from Western that yes, 100% of what we're collecting in Meridian is being recycled, and that's important. So another question was about growth. Growth? I mean, we're poised for significant growth in the next few years. For us, growth is scary. The losses get larger, right? That's one of the reasons that we're before you guys today is all the projections. I mean, I know my in-laws moved down here from Sun Valley. They've tried to buy a house in Meridian like 3 days in a row and made full price offers and been outbid by like 20 or 30,000 on houses. And last night, a house came up in Paramount. They made a full price offer with no inspection required just to get a house. I mean, it was so important to them. And so we can tell you growth is here, it's real, it's coming, and it's definitely affecting us. So growth is scary. I mean, it's great in some ways, but it's very scary for us, and that's part of the reason that we're here. So for us, we would be sustaining larger losses. And would we be willing to lower rates if markets turn around? Absolutely. That's our goal. I mean, sustainability and recycling are cornerstones to our business, and that's why we have continued to do what we've done for the last 4 years. And it is critical. It's not just our tagline or anything like that. It's really what we believe in, and we make those investments as a company all the time. So, and would we return net profits to the community recycling fund? Absolutely. Yes, for sure. And so would we continue with recycling if the city chose not to recycle, and would we be willing to offer subscription? It gets really expensive, and that's because we lose the density and the efficiencies. And also, to continue recycling, we'd have to deliver blue carts throughout Meridian because most people would be using their recycling cart as overflow trash, right? So we wouldn't know which ones were actually set out for recycling and which ones were actually set out for trash. So we'd have to deliver another cart. Maybe it's a green cart with, purple lid, or I don't know. So maybe it's something else, but it would be something different to identify recycling on the street to the driver, because the driver wouldn't have any idea which houses were actually participating.
Rochelle, could you explain that to me? Why would that be?
Why?
Because if Meridian said, no, Meridian as Meridian city government, we were stopping recycling, but you can still maintain your recycling level directly through Republic Services, why would you then need another cart? Because you already said that in the past, we've heard that like 84% or something of our residents already have recycled carts. So if we said, it's not going to be part of your utility service, but if you have a cart, you can continue with Republic.
So, Mr. Chairman and Carrie, good question. But people would need, everything in Meridian has to be in a cart. So this material is at these houses now, and it's not going away. So people who many of our houses fill their trash cart and their recycling cart on recycling weeks already. So for us, people would either need to get a second trash cart. We'd have to buy all new trash carts to make sure that the green lid matched the green body, or we'd have to allow people to use the green cart with the red lid for trash. And that's what we've been saying all along, is if cities can decide to discontinue recycling, both carts would be trash. So we wouldn't have, we're driving up a street, we don't know which one is going to be out for recycling and which one's going to be out for trash. If they're all lined up in a curb, like let's say in Paramount, we would need some way to let the driver know that this week this is out for recycling. It's not just full of trash. And we can handle the billing. I didn't know that's
Right.
where you're going with that. We can handle the billing. We handle billing all around the country all the time. That's no problem. But we would have to have a different cart to signify that this is a recycling household versus just,
Well, but that's what I'm saying. If I think that's where the question is going on this one, is if we said, okay, we're choosing not to participate in
Yep.
recycling, but the homeowner, if you still have a recycling cart, you can use it for recycling. Republic Services will bill you separately for that. If you don't want the recycling, then they would give it back.
Oh,
If they
so-
needed it.
okay,
then
so
if
we
they
would not
needed
collect
trash.
carts because,
To where it would just be trash for utility billing,
right.
you
just-
guys would be
so
recycling,
we
just
would
like
not-
it is now. I mean, we don't account for recycling in our
Right.
system.
So we would not go out and collect all the recycling carts because we'd leave people horrifically underserviced. If we collected all the carts and said, you have one trash cart to manage your household, that's all you get, unless you sign up for recycling, it would be a huge reduction in service for people. They wouldn't have enough capacity probably, and we would have to pull in all those carts and deliver all new trash carts. And the idea for us is that at some point, if the city decides to stop recycling, and again, like, I just want to say we're policy neutral. As a company, we believe in it, we'll invest in it, it's part of what we do. However, we can't subsidize it around the country. That's not a shareholder value, I have to say. So that's just not the way it works. But we would not take the carts away because just recovering 32,000 recycling carts and then redelivering 32,000 trash carts, just that every trash cart is $90. So for us, that would be a significant investment to buy it would change costs in a different way to buy another 32,000 trash carts but we can handle the billing. We just would need some way to know who's recycling other than the same cart that they've always used out at the curb with everybody else's full of trash. So, and logistically, it just drives costs up. That's why communities generally all go in with recycling because it drops the cost significantly versus subscription where instead of getting, 800 houses on a truck on a day, you'll get, significantly less, 150, 125 in Elmore County. So it just affects the density because you drive so far in between stops, so you run out of hours before you fill up your truck, if that makes sense.
Mr. Chair, question for you,
Yeah.
Rochelle. What cities is it in Canyon County that have it via subscription?
Mr. Chairman and Commissioner Pro, only Caldwell.
Okay, so with regard to Caldwell's program,
Yep.
did they convert at some point to subscription, or has it always been that way?
So that is on us. So they added it like 4 years ago, and they said when they hit a certain percentage of the participants in the city that we're supposed to come back, and we just haven't done that yet. So it was if they hit 20 or 25% in the city with recycling, then they wanted to switch it all over to everybody. And we're there. We have that many participants. So we have not gone back to ask them to add that to the franchise agreement.
Okay, what has been the subscription rate per household per month?
It is, Conrad can probably, yeah, I think it's a little over $6 per household per month for that. Yeah, I was thinking $6.20, but it's $6.16, six something per household per month.
So the issue would be figuring out a different color lid for, if Meridian wanted to proceed down this path, to
Yep.
try and figure out if we could do just trash billing for trash through MUBS and a subscription program through Republic Services for those motivated to recycle, then it's really just a logistical issue as to what you were describing.
Yeah, so imagine you're driving down and you're charged with picking up recycling. You get to a neighborhood and it has all green carts and green and red lids, and now you're in charge of picking up recycling.
Well, the thought would be the gray recycled container would have a purple lid.
Right, so that's what I'm saying. We'd have to have an identifier. We'd have to identify those carts in some way. But we couldn't just go status quo. It'd have to somehow be modified to signify that it's actually out for recycling.
So that we
Yeah.
could, and that cost could be put into the subscription rate,
Right,
right?
yeah, absolutely.
And then, Rochelle, I believe I've heard that Idaho Falls is also on a subscription basis, but that's through Western, so you probably don't
Yes.
have the financial information for them.
Right.
Okay.
So Pocatello is everybody. Idaho Falls is subscription. Yes, yeah. And So, but we would be able to offer it, but it would just be expensive. And franchise agreements nationwide, we have 2,700, a little over 2,700. All of our Rocky Mountain West contracts are having the same discussion. Midwest, East Coast are really unaffected. Just on the next page, page 8 at the top, I talk about just what's going on in Idaho and then in some of our other cities. So Twin Falls has an interesting arrangement, and these are all things that we can talk about too, but they increased rates $2 per household per month, but agreed that they wouldn't go more than that if they had to subsidize the rates any more than that. And so the tipping point for them turned out to be $100 per ton, and bringing their materials to Western from where they are is over $100 a ton, so their materials are currently being landfilled. Pocatello increased rates $3 per household per month. Idaho Falls is up $2 per household per month. Garden City, Eagle, and Star $100.25 per household per month. Nampa, we have a public hearing next week. To finish, we've had a couple public meetings out there. We've actually had 3 public meetings in Nampa to answer questions. Caldwell went up $1.25 per household per month, and Middleton chose 90 cents. Oregon cities, Albany went up $2, Harrisburg, $2, and in the next 30 days, I think they have like something like 17 cities making decisions out of the people that I talked to. So everybody's sort of in the same timeline right now with addressing this. And none of our contracts to date out of all of our cities have chosen to stop recycling. So that was a question. I can't say what other cities are doing outside of, I called all the way up to people in the Idaho Solid Waste Association through Northern Idaho. People are subsidizing and not pulling programs, but that could be happening. I just don't know of them right now. But so far, people are choosing to invest on the recycling side versus not. And the next question was, can we switch to once a month recycling every 4 weeks? We had this question too with household hazardous waste. It actually becomes more expensive to go once every 4 weeks. And the reason for that is you have to staff differently. So you have to have a whole bunch of trucks on the 4th week. So it's not like the first Monday of every month is your service. It's every 4 weeks. And so we actually have a once every 4 week schedule with Glass in Boise. It's a very complicated schedule. People miss it all the time because maybe it's the first Monday of April, but it's also the last Monday of April because there are 5 weeks or 5 Mondays. And so it's every 4 week service. And even with magnets, that's a tough niche market to service, and it's really hard on a municipal level. So there's the perceived miss, like, oh, this was my 4th week, but it really maybe wasn't your 4th week. And there's also, from a customer service standpoint, that's what drives a lot of our calls is Glass perceived misses. Like if you're on an every 4 week schedule for Glass, people think that they've missed it. So from a customer service, if you're answering phone standpoint, it's a rough service level. Also, if you think about it, this material doesn't go away, so people build up a surplus of it. It's not going to fit in the cart once. So we either have to give people a second cart, and we also have to add a lot of drivers because the drivers are used to hitting these houses every other week. Now we need to double the staff to hit it hard on the once a month service every 4 weeks. So operationally, it adds a lot of cost. It doesn't reduce costs. And we had this similar conversation with Stericycle when we said, can you cut back? I don't know if you guys remember that, but we had the same conversation with, can you offer once a month at the transfer station? And the answer was we'd have to resource up extra trucks and extra bodies to make sure we work through the volume that's inbound. So it would also drive material out of the cart. I don't know how without delivering additional carts, we would have, the material probably wouldn't fit in the cart. And the cost to take Meridian's recyclables to MRFs with optical sorters. We have looked, trust me, when I say we've looked at every angle, because once we hit that disposal mark where we're net negative, we're looking for options to reduce even our losses, right? When it's disposal, we can't imagine we're obligated to take it to one landfill versus another or one MRF versus another once we're in the negative. Once we're paying, we want to try to minimize our losses. The problem we run into is every time you touch something, it adds expense. So it's $25 to bale and $30 to ship for the most part. Sometimes shipping's a little more. So it's $55 just to get it out of Boise to now start the process that Western charges us for, which is to separate it and then bale and ship it again. So we have everybody else with a MRF right close by that has optical sorters has a $55 head start is probably the best way I would explain it. But we have looked at every every MRF in the area. On the bottom of this page, I talk about Logan, Utah. MRFs have structured their costs differently. Like Logan charges $70 a ton, but then they don't give any commodity revenue back. That sounds good to us, like right now. I mean, we're paying 86 something right now to have our materials sorted. So at Western. So, but the problem is, and you have $55 to get it there to pay 70. We also looked up at Salt Lake City. That's $40, but then they charge you for trash on top of that. So they said, oh, we're only $40. So it's $55 to get it there and $40, and then we have to pay whatever our disposal charges are on top of that. Seattle, we own that MRF. We have lots of different agreements there. Sometimes it's $91 a ton, and then the commodity revenue goes back to the city, and other cities choose $70 a ton, and they don't want the commodity revenue. They just want to know that's what the price is per month. Spokane, Washington is owned by Waste Management. That's a newer facility, and I actually toured it with Idaho Solid Waste Association. I didn't take pictures. I can't remember all the technologies in there. They're 100 to 125 a ton, but the commodity revenue is returned to the city. So it depends on how sophisticated their sorters are. But even if it's 100 and 125 a ton, we still have to get it there, and then hope that the commodity revenue offsets some of that the additional cost between like 86 and some change where we are to 100, let's say. So I just walked through that below. But, and then down below, I just included that, just in case anyone wants to look at the definition of solid waste. I mean, this is the world we live in, so we're used to these different Code of Federal Regulations and solid waste. And so this just kind of walks through what the definition is of recycling. It's always been there. And then on the last page, I walked through some of our city choices on who voted to do what. And then Pocatello, I was waiting to hear back from them, and I got a call actually just this morning, and they have chosen to keep it and just increase rates. So that what they increased them by is earlier in the document, but they did vote to keep it as well. So I know there's a lot of information. I'm going to get, like my to-do list, I will get a copy from Mayor Beater's office of what was submitted there, and I'll forward you this electronic copy when I get back to my office. I'll forward you the draft letter sent from Boise City to Western, and I'll send you a copy of the verifications that we get back from Western saying that the materials are recycled, and then I will call over and get a copy of what Western submitted to the mayor's office. So we haven't seen that yet. So we have just the Boise City letter and verifications that the materials are being recycled. Is there anything else you guys need or want from us?
So, Mr. Chair, just to coordinate the logistics, would the commission prefer Rochelle submit to me the documents she just referred to, and then I could disseminate it to you? Because I also have internal staff who need to get it as well. So I think it'd be easier to just have a point of contact, and if that would work for you.
I believe that is protocol for commissions anyway, is for one distribution, so it doesn't appear that we've got conflicts here.
Okay, for continuity. Yeah. Okay, so I'll send you this document, and I'll send you the letter to Western, and I'll send you the verification of, and it might take me a while to get the letter from the mayor's office, but I'll put a call in tonight, but I'm sure they're probably gone at this point.
Thank you, Andrea. Yes, I think that's very appropriate, and thank you, Rochelle.
Sure. Any other questions?
Mr. Chair, I
Yes,
have a question.
Andrea.
Sure.
Can we stay a little bit?
Yes.
Okay, so, Rochelle, great job. Thank you for the presentation.
I'm sure people are so sick of hearing this.
I think we all need to digest it,
Yeah.
and look forward to doing that. Could you talk about Twin Falls and why they settled on 100 a ton as their differentiating point?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner, I don't know. And Josh Bartolome is on the Idaho Solid Waste Commission board with me, and I can ask him why that was their maximum threshold. So I don't know what that is, and I don't know why that is.
So, because if they use Western, and that's at 87 a ton.
But they've got to bail it and ship it here on
Right.
top of that.
So, yeah, so I'm trying to figure out, why it was the 100 a ton. If you could get back to us on that, that
Yeah.
would be great.
And my guess is it costs them more than $14 a ton to get it here.
Yeah.
So that was my
Right.
understanding, is it's more than 14 to get it here, so it's just cheaper to bury it in their backyard.
Yeah.
And then to pay to get it here and then process on top of it, so.
So what does it cost here? So, because I was adding up, it's 87 processing fee at the MRF on the processing side, 55 to ship, right?
Right.
Approximately.
Yeah.
We get charged that percentage for the contamination trash disposal fee, which is about, I don't know, $10.
Yeah, thank you, Jason. It's in there. There's and you guys don't usually get this, but we asked Western to send it to you now. So you'll see, we get like the little box that shows us how much trash is in there and how much we're getting charged for that and all that.
And
So
I
you'll
think
see.
I don't think this is in this memo. And historically, I think it was like $10. So that gets me to $152 before I add in that net cost negative 58, let's say. So if you,
Well, the 87 is all in. That's
their fee.
That's their fee to process, and then bailing and shipping is on top of that. And then the revenue, what they sell it for, is applied against that before we drop to the bottom number. So
So is it 152 or is it 200?
152, 152 is kind of all in, and then they say, well, you got, this much for aluminum, like $8 a ton for aluminum and $4 a ton for plastic, or whatever those revenues are, which they're low right now. So that's why the revenues are applied against that big number, which is the 150 something. It's actually bigger. That's why we say it's so expensive to put trash in this cart, because we have to pay to separate the trash out, and then we have to pay to have it, go through all of the parts that you're just talking about. It's like 150 a ton, and then it goes to Ada County in the end. So it's cheaper.
And likewise, it's expensive so
Yes.
this piece of paper is trash. Today's world. That's what we're being told.
Right. So
So it goes in the trash can, Rochelle, and what does it cost?
33 a ton.
Okay, and it goes in to the recycling container, and I guess I would like to know as a consumer, is it approximately $152 to launch it down the recycling path?
Yes. So and that's that red, right? Jason brought it up right here. So if you look at the graph on the screen, this is a commodity profile that we get from Western Recycling. And so, and you'll see that they tell you on the top what percentage of each ton. So every ton of Meridians that comes in and gets dumped on the floor, there's the commodity profile. So 33% is cardboard, and 44.47 is mixed waste paper, and less than 1% is aluminum, and so you can walk across and see. So now underneath that, they're telling you what the market price is. So all in, if you just delivered your cardboard to a buyer with just in your truck, in theory, and you had a ton of it, it'd be worth $31.67. And so, and then now they start like backing out the costs after that point. So now and mixed waste paper does not have a value. So the question is, what do you consider value, right? So Western is saying, we are still finding people to take it, and we're finding people to recycle it. And so we have communities that are saying that's worth something. Even though we're paying, and we've been paying for a long time for paper, there's still someone willing to take it and make it into something useful and not cut down trees. So the question is, what's your threshold for that? And there are other things that offset it. So, there's value in aluminum, there's value in tin, a little bit, but not like, enough to offset the paper. But yeah, paper comes to mind. When you look at that, you can see right off the bat, paper's expensive. And then, so you have the net price per ton. And then now, for each ton of material coming in, it costs out of their total, which is $87.63, we're adding to that, 44.47% of what we just dumped on there. It costs $38.97 to pull out that paper to bale and ship it. So, so that's the processing cost, and then the residual down below is that how much trash is really in that. And then down below you can see the actual cost per ton for paper. So it is the most expensive one. But the question is, if you want to keep it in, let some of the others offset it, That's why Middleton said no, but other people are saying, yeah, you know, there's enough value in cardboard and plastic and aluminum to maybe offset that, and we're willing to see if the market recovers. I heard that it maybe had, and then today I heard maybe it hadn't. So we don't have enough confidence to know what the market's going to do, I guess, is the bottom line. It changes day to day. But anyway, so this now you guys will get, at least Andrea will get this every month from Western, and you can distribute that from Western, so you'll see exactly what the profile looks like. And this is just kind of the behind-the-scenes tour. So when we come to you guys and we say, oh, it was $77.69 last month to have Western take our recycling, these are the numbers behind the number. So this is, usually it's been noise to people, but now that there's a big cost associated with it, it's not noise anymore. People want to know those numbers. And so we're glad that you're welcome to look at all those. So, do you have a question?
No, agreed.
Yeah, you guys are probably so tired of talking about recycling. So if you have any other questions, I'll email these to Andrea tonight, and then anybody who has questions beyond this can, you know, get them through Andrea or through me or whatever. So anyway, thanks. And I don't think I'll see you guys. Hopefully you guys are all joining Cheryl and me at Unplugged for Recycle a Bicycle. I don't know. Yay. So, and okay, Mark, so we've got a team. So we have an air compressor and slime. So we have buckets so that we're going to be pumping up tires. So anyway, so we won't be doing the, what is it, Brett's program? It's the Trash to Treasure. We won't be surfing around there, but hopefully you guys can stop by. So anyway, if you have any other questions, let me know and I'll shoot this document over. Thank you for walking through that. So, all right.
Thank you.
Okay, that concludes our old business. And in the new business, based on where things have gone on the ADA SWAC meeting and recycling program options update, I'm going to do this together with B on the open meeting and recycling program options survey results. The Ada County SWAC met a week ago today and ended up having to meet earlier today to go ahead and complete their consideration of the options. I think their survey results are telling, whereas with Boise and Meridian, participation at a public hearing showed around 90% of the participants wanting option one. Ada County is seeing closer to 50% supporting option one, and about 40% saying drop recycling altogether. So once you get outside of Boise and Meridian, the support is a little more tenuous. The Ada County Commission has not made a decision at this point.
In Garden City.
Yes, I did mean Boise and Garden City, having had their meetings that approached 90% support. Having said that, based on this survey result of there being a slight preponderance of people that are supporting keeping the program at the additional cost, and the general view that recycling is easier for the electeds, the Ada County SWAC chose to recommend to the commissioners to go ahead and choose option one for the residents that are in the unincorporated area of Ada County, but that's a decision that the commissioners are going to have to go ahead and pick up, and certainly survey results could change by the end of the month. So, Andrea.
Mr. Chair, I think Dave Neal made clear that it would be a reimbursement. If the commissioners go with the $1.25 option, it would be a reimbursement to Republic Services paid from the enterprise fund, similar to what Boise's contemplating or is already doing, and instead of an immediate rate hike to households.
That is an extremely important point. And for Meridian works on a cash basis. So whatever process we choose, the financial impacts would be commensurate. Whereas all these other entities, Garden City, Boise, Ada County Unincorporated, and I believe Eagle is in the same boat, could absorb the cost for a short period of time and would not have to deal with the financial impacts immediately. So that's a very good point. Further questions on the county? Okay, that completes our business on the agenda. The next meeting is May 23rd. And as always, if you have some subjects that you think we need to pick up, please get them to myself or to Andrea. And otherwise, any other comments for the good of the order? Andrea?
Well, I guess, Mr. Chair, I'm just wondering, is the commission of the mind that they want to review this information presented by Republic Services today and put it, maybe allow staff to do that as well, and then come back on our next agenda with a staff recommendation and take this topic up again? At some point, City Council is looking to us for a recommendation.
Mr. Chair, that would have been my understanding. That was the instruction from the last meeting. So since we just literally got the information, we would follow through with what was recommended at the April's meeting, since we haven't concluded that request, which was for this report to come back to staff, Republic, have a vetting session, come back to SWAC with an actual recommendation.
I would concur with what has been mentioned by Carrie and with Andrea, because of the fact that I believe that we need to be very careful about what we pick up to make sure that we understand the ramifications to the franchise agreement. So yes, we definitely want an analysis with including the ramifications to the franchise agreement.
Okay, thank you.
Any further items for the good of the order?
Mr. Chair, if Andrew wants to add the bicycle raffle on the discussion, and talk about how that went.
And we may be ready to do treasure as well. I do believe we actually needed to tell Meg, Commissioner Larson, that she needs to get started on, if she chooses to accept chairing the SWAC booth for the public work, expo. That's usually June 7th or June 5th. It's that Thursday night. I'm not sure what the date is. We'll only have one SWAC meeting between now and then.
Yeah, I believe it is June 7th.
So it is Thursday, June 7th. So you should pencil that in, because we will need some commissioner volunteers to man the booth from 4 to 7 p.m. Hopefully Meg will agree to be the chair again. We can put it on the May 23rd agenda. So
Thank you.
I think
Please,
that's enough time.
please follow through with
Yeah.
communication with Commissioner Larson and see if she's willing to do that, and if not, then we'll
Okay.
figure out someone to go ahead and make that effort occur.
Okay. Perfect.
Additional items? Very good. Oh, Councilwoman Malam.
Mr. Chair, thank you. So I guess I could have emailed, and after I guess, some confusion maybe on my part, because something you discussed at a previous meeting was the Recycle a Bicycle program and taking some money from the Community Recycling Fund to help pay for the repairs for the parts on those bicycles, which we're doing for the Unplugged Week. However, I know Rochelle and her volunteers have also been putting together a lot of bikes for Meridian students, for underprivileged kids, kids at risk. So they've had amazing results, and I would like to maybe for you guys to consider putting some money towards that program as well. It's just, it's just for the parts and for the things that they need, but I've seen some pictures of these kids, and they're so grateful, and it makes a huge impact on our youth here in Meridian, so you can put that up there. Sorry, I'm out of breath.
Mm-hmm. I would go ahead and say that we'll, I guess, maybe, yeah, I don't know whether we can, well, actually, we are very deficient on quarterly reports and needing to catch up on. So we'll need to go ahead and pick that up when we can fit it in. Particularly in light, Rochelle, I'd like to talk about that subject offline.
Anytime.
Further items. Therefore, I will go ahead and call this meeting adjourned at this point. It is 5:37, and once again, I thank you so much for your volunteer effort on this activity.